Are millennials really giving up on home ownership? We're going to dive into two articles that make that point that they are giving up on home ownership. I'll make an argument as to why I feel like the data that they point to in those articles doesn't even support that point. And I want to give my own personal perspective on what's going on as a millennial myself. So the two articles we want to look at today, we have an article from The Independent titled "Millennials Are Giving Up the Thought of Ever Buying a House." And then another one from Washington Post saying, "Are millennials frozen out of the housing market? The reality may be more interesting." So in the Independent article, they point to a new research paper that has found that the millennial generation is giving up the thought of ever buying a house, with experts estimating fewer will live out the American dream of becoming homeowners. This is sort of a thesis statement at the beginning of the article that makes 2 points, and they're pretty different. The article goes on to say that just about 74% of people born in 1990 will become homeowners by retirement, a 9.6% decline from nearly 84% of people born in 1950 who have bought a house. So essentially what they are wanting to look at is a 40-year gap. And so from 1950 to 1990, and to say that 10% fewer people born in 1990 are going to end up being homeowners than back in 1950. So again, it's a 40-year comparison. And then the data is still showing that millennials born in 1990 and later, 3/4 of them will still end up becoming homeowners. That is the first kind of clue that maybe we aren't giving up on home ownership if 3/4 of us are still going to end up being homeowners. The article later makes the point that about 15% of the US population has already given up on homeownership by the age of 30, the research has found. If you look at that in context, what it is saying is that 15% of 20-year-olds don't think they'll ever be able to buy a home. That is not the sweeping, grandiose statement that all millennials are giving up the thought of ever buying a home. 15% of people still in their 20s don't think it's realistic that they'll actually be able to buy a home. I mean, 15% of people in their 20s think a lot of different things. I don't think that's a representative sample size or something that we should be making widespread sweeping statements about. The current title of the article is that millennials are giving up the thought of ever buying a house. A more honest, accurate, less sensational or article title would be something like 85% of millennials still believe they'll buy a home and 74% probably. So again, most of us will be homeowners because we still want to, because we haven't figured it out. The Washington Post article, they go on to show 3 different surveys that all contradict each other. And I want to just dive very quickly into each of them. So the National Association of Realtors made headlines this month with its annual survey of home buyers, revealing an eye-popping statistic that the average first-time home buyer is now 40 years old. For years, the agent's annual survey of home buyers showed a very gradual uptick in first-time buyers' ages from a median of 28 to 91 to 33. This has accelerated to 36 and then 38 years old in 2024 and now 40. The article points out they basically got survey responses from a little bit over 6,000 people. And of those 6,000 people, they pulled this data that the average or the median age is now 40. But before you jump to conclusions that the average age is actually 40, they point to Connor O'Brien, who grabbed data from the Census Bureau. So this is maybe a more reliable survey set, which asks a huge representative sample of Americans about their housing. By his findings, the median age of a first-time home buyer has held at 33 for nearly a decade. 33 is a pretty significant difference from 40. So National Association of Realtors says it's 40. Census Bureau data, at least the survey results from it, I was saying 33. But then they go on and they show one more from the Cato Institute. This one's a different data set, but it's saying 42 to 45% of all first-time home buyers are in the ages of 25 to 34. So what you end up with here is 3 different data sets. One suggests the average age is 40. Another one suggests that the average age is 33. And the other one says that most first-time home buyers are in the 25 to 34-year-old range, which seems to be more in line with the Census Bureau data rather than the National Association of Realtors data. But the inarguable, verifiable fact is that it is harder for millennials like me to buy a home. Nobody should be arguing that. I think the data isn't as sensational or as clickbaity as people would like it to be. We are not giving up. It's just not happening. The fiction in this is that millennials are giving up on owning a home. They'll either own homes or really hope to someday. it is part of the American dream, and it is what we were born and raised with. It is in our fabric and our DNA. It is a part of our identity. We want to own homes. Every single one of us. Maybe a few of us have given up in our 20s, but all of us still have that part of the American dream, like coursing through our veins. Neither article talks about causes or solutions, and that's where I want to get a little bit preachy on this, and we'll see what you guys think. So there are two groups of people who are making this problem worse for millennials. I want to start off with baby boomers, and I want to zoom past this one pretty quick. Roughly 80% of adults 65 and older own their home. Roughly 70% of those adults plan to age in place. And while this reduces housing availability, this is not a problem. This is a great thing. My mom is a baby boomer. She owns a home. She also owns two other properties as well. I don't want her to be homeless. I don't want her to be in a home. I don't want her to be in some sort of care facility. I want her to be able to age in place. Anyone who is in the 65 or older range who owns their home, good for you. Stay there, stay in place. If there are bitter millennials or Gen Xers or somebody giving a hard time, ignore them. Those of us who actually care about human beings, we want you to live in a home, your own home that is filled with your memories and your things. And whenever your time comes, then that house becomes available. But until that point in time, be in your home. You are not the problem. You are not making the situation worse by living and existing in the home that you've been in for decades. Let's go to the second group of people, investors. So I live in Huntington Beach, which is why I care a lot about the data here for Orange County. But 26% of all homes sold in Orange County are now being purchased by investors. So 4 homes are sold in my neighborhood. At least one of them is going to an investor. That sort of accelerates over time, though, because a lot of owners are going to buy and hold. So then the stat is roughly 44% of homes in California are non-owner occupied, which means they're either turned into short-term rentals, they're Airbnbs, long-term rentals, or they're vacant. The house that I'm in right now, we are in a long-term lease with the owner. It was vacant for 5 years before this, just because the owner didn't need the money. So just let it sit, not producing any good. When my wife and kids and I moved into this neighborhood, gosh, almost 8 months ago now, the neighbors were thrilled. They're like, oh my gosh, not only just is somebody living in this house, but it's a young family. My kids are gorgeous, amazing, wonderful little creatures. So everyone's just thrilled that a house isn't vacant. If California builds 10 million new homes this year or next year over the next 10 years, like a heavy lift, half of those are going to be gone. They're going to go to somebody who's going to try to turn them into an investment asset of some sort, or just let them sit vacant. So for every 2 homes we build in California, 1 is going to go not to the person who's going to end up living there. And that, I would say, is the bigger problem. So for policy, the U.S. allows single-family residences to be bought, sold, and held like any other investable asset class. And I think that is a problem. Duplexes, apartment complexes, multifamily properties, by all means, let those be an investable asset class that is treated similarly to a stock or a bond. But for a single-family residence, that is different. Human beings need a place to live. We all need a place to live. I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it's that complicated. Certain states have tried to introduce measures to do things like making flipping more expensive, but flipping is not the problem. My goal, what I think the policy that would make the most sense, which I'm advocate for quite a while, is a special tax paid on non-owner occupied single-family residences would reduce the cap rate for these homes and return inventory to the market without hurting Californians who live in the homes they own. So how these qualifiers work: if it is an owner occupied, like for my in-laws, my mom, my brother, my sister, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, they all live in their own homes. No additional tax. They live there, they're contributing to their local communities, no special tax. If an investor wants to buy a duplex, a triplex, a multifamily property, no special tax. They're not hurting the average Californian or the average American by taking tenantable or livable properties off the market. They are actually performing a decent good. If somebody wants to get into the game of taking starter homes, or condos or townhomes or your single family residences, take them off the market for private use. Well, not even private use, for income producing things like an Airbnb or short term rental. Even a long term rental is not as good as having owner occupied home. That's where this would come into play. The way that this would work is if it's introduced slowly, especially, you would have a slow exit of investors from the market, which is exactly what you want. It is easier to induce 10 million non-owner occupied homes back on the market over a 10-year period than to go 10 million new homes. Or at our current investment rate, it ought to be like 20 million new homes to get 10 million opportunities. I hope this helps you understand millennials a little better, and the fact that we are not giving up. We still very much believe in the American dream and have the dream of home ownership just like you do. So thanks for watching. Hope this is helpful. I'll see you in the next one.